David is in law school and engaged to be married. Although he is physically distant from the people who abused him, he is still haunted by them. They come to visit him, his parents, and their presence sparks a sharp decline. His relationship falls apart, and he tries desperately to numb himself. His appetite wanes, and he loses focus as life becomes too much to bear. David goes running at all hours. It is the only time he allows himself to cry. One day, without warning, David's father calls. They are worried about him, his father says. "We're coming to help you, son." David discovers they are right around the corner 5 minutes away. His father gives him an ultimatum. Either he comes home with them, or they will institutionalize him. David screams out. He falls to the floor as he loses control of his bowels. He is 30 years of age, but the 3-year-old boy doesn't want to go and doesn't know how to say no. His supposed saviors are the very people who torment him. He goes back to the place that his parents call home, and he calls hell. Barren, deathly cold, and smelling of death and lies. David sees a therapist over the next 3 years. He is taking speed. "I just didn't want to deal," he tells me. Until the day he broke. "It was raining," he says. "I had an appointment with my therapist, but I have no idea how I got there." The moment he steps into the elevator, he collapses and begins to weep. He gets to her office. Now, in a rage, he kicks down the waiting room door. Thank God no one was in there, he tells me. As the storm of his despair, pain, grief, and rage unleash, he nearly destroys the office, his body lifting off the floor as he screams out, "This wasn't supposed to happen to me." David pauses. He looks me in the eye. "This," he says, "was the moment I said, 'No more.'" And so it was that David began to heal. It was the foundation for all the work he has done and how he has been able to get to where he is today. Sometimes, he tells me with a look of relief and gratitude, I look around and think, I'm not in hell anymore. It began when she left the house that she had once shared with her ex-husband. All told, Roseanne moved 5 times in 10 years, starting then. The places and moves became a map, each apartment or house revealing the landscape of her inner life. The descent she embarked upon, an ascent that would transform her, live on in the very walls and floorboards of every threshold she has crossed, and every space she has resided in. Roseanne begins her story in the fall of 2001, just after her 3rd move. She is living alone, renting a house from a friend on the quiet edges of a university neighborhood. She is in pain. Life has broken her one too many times, and it has left her completely devastated. She tells me of the white glare of anxiety, rooted in fear, that chills her blood and freezes her to the very marrow of her bones. Humility brings Roseanne to her knees. She feels as though she is a failure, that she has caused others tremendous pain. Initially, I felt so large and awkward, Roseanne tells me, as if I was too big for the house. Later, she finds herself shrinking like Alice, and it seems as though the house is swallowing her. When she first moves in, Roseanne leaves every light on in the house. Painstakingly and with great effort, Roseanne learns to embrace the darkness. As she learns to navigate each room without light, she also begins to let go. An identity that no longer suits her or serves her begins to die. Although the loneliness can be biting and relentless, she knows that no one can accompany her through this. She learns to rely on herself, knowing that her life is now her responsibility. Roseanne begins to think of the legacy she wants to leave behind for her daughters and for herself. Roseanne moves again, and it is a time of adjustment. She is birthing a new life, and there are times when the old coldness and fear reach out to her, but she is too far along this path to ever turn back. Her focus sharpens as she asks herself, what do I need now? What is it I want? Roseanne returns to her education and begins to contemplate buying her own house. I needed roots again, she tells me. I needed a home. In the last 5 years, Roseanne bought a house and completed her degree. It marked the end of a long search. She is creating her own history and nurturing the new life she has given birth to. She traveled to Japan and France, something she tells me she could only do after she had a home to come back to. There is great joy in her world, although she never ceases to imagine what might come next and the steps she needs to take to continue manifesting and renewing what she has so bravely created. I have an image of myself, Roseanne confides, as a vibrant woman right until the end. I want to be missed. When people think of me, I want them to feel warmth. This was how Roseanne found her way on the road to home. The first time Helena is sexually abused, she is a child. No one believes her. No one listens. At the age of 14, Helena is raped. Again, no one believes her. He is her brother-in-law's cousin. He tells her it is going to be okay. It isn't. Helena is pregnant. She has the baby. The man who raped her, the father of her child, is vicious to her. He beats her and taunts her. One day, he even knowingly brings the man who had sexually abused her to the house. She fights back, only to have the bottom of her door set on fire. She is filled with hatred for the man who is destroying her life. It changes one cold, wintry day. He has recently been in an accident. They fight, and Helena attacks him with one of his crutches. Every time I hit him for everything he did to me, Helena says. I left him for dead. She flees, taking her baby, running through the snow with no shoes on, no coat. The next day, she moves.
Please hang up and try again.
Helena returns home to finish high school. He shows up on her doorstep with a blue plastic coat for the child. She is no longer afraid. I told him, I'm not scared of you anymore. I am not going to run. There are years upon years of pain. Shame and hatred are destroying her from the inside out. She believes she is unloved and unlovable. She doesn't know where she belongs. There is nowhere she fits in. She constantly asks herself, "What is wrong with me?" The darkness smothers her, haunts her, terrifies her. Helena is in her 40s when her world finally crumbles. After another failed relationship, she gets in her car and drives until she runs out of gas. After 6 months, she is out of money, out of food, and homeless. Helena tells me of the day she looked in the mirror and truly saw herself. I was funky, my hair was all matted, I was losing my mind and I wanted to die. The pain was so intense, I couldn't live. She calls her brother and tells him, "I need to come home." Her life begins to shift. She enters therapy, and for the first time in her life, she is able to put a name to her experience. The rape was always a secret, Helena says. She learns to forgive. Helena tells me, "I've reconciled with my past." She no longer carries the pain and shame. She allows her hatred to die, and it has made room for new life. Although Helena still doesn't like the dark, she won't let it hold her back. Helena has bought a house, a place of refuge and solace for her and all those she loves. She now advocates for victims of rape, sexual abuse, and domestic violence. Helena has found her voice and owns her truth. "I finally chose life," Helena says with contentment. "I no longer look to others for validation. I take care of myself now. I'm free." Helena is filled with gratitude. "I'm grateful for my past, my memories, my growth, my spirituality, the love that I feel for myself, the joy that has finally come into my life, and the peace of mind. The path that I had to take to get here, I wouldn't have it any other way." Perta has known tragedy all of her life. Brutality and suffering created the world she lives in. Her soul is bruised and tattered. And yet there is such strength that resides within her. This strength, the source that she draws from, was born the night that she faced death. Perta begins her story by telling me that she didn't know how to pray. She was raised Catholic and only knew the form prayers. She tells me of the friend who taught her to pray, as if God were a trusted friend or a respected elder. "It was the most valuable gift anyone has ever given me," she says. Perta is 13 when she decides to kill herself. Death seems like the only way out. But there is something she needs to do first, just in case. She kneels because she is deadly serious. If this doesn't work, she is going to do what she feels she has to. But there is one hope left, and she has to try. She prays, "Are you there, God? If you are, can you hear me? And if you can hear me, do you care? Do you love me? Because nobody loves me, and I need to know if you love me." "It happens gradually," Perta whispers. "It is like being in the womb. I feel enveloped in love. It is warm, nurturing. I am floating in love. But even more so, it is inside me. I am suffused, filled and surrounded with this. It seeps through my body, my bones, my cells. I had never felt loved, she says. She sees a man. He holds her. It is a chaste love, so important to the young girl who has only known torment and abuse by the hands of her birth father. She thinks, this is my true father. He is respectful. This is genuine love and care. Perda falls asleep on her knees. When she wakes, hours later, he is still there, still with her. She thanks him and tells him she loves him. He never left me after that, Perda confides. She tells me that this is the most significant thing that has ever happened to her, and her entire life since then has been based on this relationship, his love.